someone has started a murderous rampage based on the stories of Edgar Allan Poe.
You're referring to one of my stories, a work of fiction.
I'm afraid I'm not.
So Poe and the detective team up to stop the serial killer.
Are there other stories in the collection, specifically about murder?
I'm afraid so.
But when Poe's love is to be the next victim, he puts his own life on the line to save her.
Who are you?
In The Raven.
The Raven, we've all just seen it, and I'd like to introduce our new guest reviewer, Jimmy O from JoBlo.com.
Thank you, thank you. I started with Arrow in the Head, which is a fantastic horror site, and now I'm with JoBlo, and I do have a column at Arrow. It's a great place because it's kind of like the frat boy of movie websites where we'll give any movie a chance, from The Artist to Casa de Mi Padre, which I liked.
Now, Teresa, I'm going to let you start it off with our talk on The Raven.
The premise is about the serial killer who kills people based on Poe's writing, because the serial killer's motive is to get Poe to release his writer's block and to write short stories based on whatever the killer's doing.
The premise was great, and going in I expected something really wild, but it felt at times like a bland BBC mystery. There was no heart and no suspense, although there were some pretty cool murder sequences.
What would have added more tension and energy to the film would have been to have more suspects earlier on. I remember seeing the film and turning to Sean. I was sitting next to him and saying, well, I know who did it because there's only one person other than John Cusack on the screen. But I was wrong. And I think that would have helped along if you could have pointed your fingers at various different people instead of who ended up being the murderer.
And the editing, come on, what was the deal with that? They would have these great murder sequences, and you're like, oh my God, this woman's being attacked, and cut to another scene, and what the f***? Really killed the suspense for me.
There were such cool death scenes based on his short stories, like the Pit and the Pendulum scene where a man is strapped to the table and a blade is hanging from the ceiling, and slowly it comes down, swinging, and for the audience, that was a really tense scene.
And we have to notice that the guy was a critic that was on the table. And, you know, what have I done? I'm just a critic. Well, there you go. So
maybe we shouldn't say anything else about this film.
It's great. We loved it.
It was so good. But I think that we can all agree about John Cusack. Even though he made some interesting choices, he tended towards comedy when I thought he should have been tended towards intensity. He was good as Poe.
I did like how he added the comedy into this because the murder scenes were so gory that I think it needed some sort of light to go with the darkness.
I did see a little bit of Rob Gordon from High Fidelity in this film. I was waiting for a list of the top 10 Desert Island Raven songs.
Janie Jones, Clash, from The Clash. Let's Get It On, Marvin Gaye from Let's Get It On.
I really enjoyed John Cusack here. It was wild, it was morose, it was funny, it was witty, it was charismatic, even sometimes sympathetic. And I also liked how the detective, Luke Evans, he kind of played off Cusack very well.
If I do not read a vivid accounting of this convergence of fact and fiction, then dear Emily will die.
Your men are right, I've killed her.
We must assume Miss Hamilton is still alive.
Why must we assume that? Because it's more convenient to do so? Why am I to blame?
Where were all these officers last night? Where were you? He told you he was coming!
Mr. Poe, listen to me. This killer is methodical. He will keep her alive to keep you involved.
They had much better chemistry than him and Alice Eve, and I don't know if it was the casting choice of based on she's so young, and John Cusack looked a lot older, and I never really understood why someone who's so young and fresh would enjoy being with someone who's so dark and someone who's already had, like, lost his wives. Like, I just didn't understand their relationship.
I think they did a good job of setting up the fact that she was intrigued by his death surrounding him, and she lived such a privileged lifestyle, and so she was attracted to that kind of darkness.
She was good. I liked her performance per se, yet between her and Cusack, I felt no sparks, no fire. I don't know why, I don't know what it was, but they just didn't connect for me.
You point to the script a lot as the fault of the film, and I agree with you, there's definitely some foibles there, script-wise. I personally blame our director, James McTeigue, of V for Vendetta fame. He could have overseen a lot of tonal missteps, and when we're talking about the edit, those are all things that he approved of. He approved of that cutaway to break the tension, and he approved of, you know, the awkwardness in terms of the horror aspects of the film.
With this film, I also have a hard time trying to figure out exactly what went wrong because nothing is blatantly bad. I mean, it looks great, the story is interesting, and then the actors are good, so why is this just not working?
You're right. There's just something missing.
I think it's time we make a decision regarding The Raven.
Nevermore.
Well, why don't we take our tickets?
If it's a dark and stormy night, and the Raven is outside your window, cawing, you have nothing better to do, get the popcorn going, put on the TV, and watch The Raven at home. I say stream it.
The Raven is not a bad film, but it's a combination of interesting choices that add up to an ineffective scare. I say stream it.
There's nothing blatantly wrong with The Raven, but it's another meh for me. Stream it.
Well, it looks like our votes add up to 1.5 tickets, which is a stream it for The Raven. Cheers.
Nevermore.
Nah.